you're talking about Mark Messier, you're talking about a latter-day Gordie Howe.
From a very early age, I was programmed to win. My whole concentration and focus was on winning and doing whatever it took to win.
Ever wondered what it's like to be a hockey legend? Like the kind of guy who could score goals in his sleep, chug a whole pub, hang out with the gals, captain 2 Stanley Cup champions, and still be a total badass? We're talking about Mark Messier. Born on January 18, 1961 in St. Albert, Alberta, Mark Messier wasn't only a hockey player. He was an immortal titan of hockey. Big, built like a brick outhouse, he played with viciousness that made the opponent think twice about crossing his path. Even back in the early days, with Portland Winterhawks of the Western Hockey League, Messier was a young star rising. His NHL career, split between the Edmonton Oilers and New York Rangers, was nothing short of legend. 5 Stanley Cups with Edmonton, then that '94 cup-clinching goal for the Rangers that ended their 54-year drought. Man, pure hockey lore right there. But it wasn't only his skill and scoring ability that set Messier apart. He was a natural leader, a captain who demanded respect and inspired his teammates. That's why they called him the Messiah. Well, maybe that's a bit of a stretch, but it shows his impact on the game. Despite his mad skills on the ice rink, he's garnered a bit of hate that sticks to this day. Before we take a feel for the heat, make sure to grab an icy drink, like, and subscribe. With that said, let's get back to the video. It's a hockey storyline as Canadian as the maple syrup and cold beer. Mark Messier and the Vancouver Canucks. It was the '94 playoffs, eh? Things were heated, bodies were flying, and every shift was a battle royal. Then came May 26th, Game 6. Linden was already banged up, and he's out there giving it his all. That's when Messier decides to take a run at him that wasn't a hockey hit. It was a downright dirty play. Linden was down, vulnerable, and this guy lays a cheap shot that echoed through the whole damn rink. It was a gutless move, plain and simple. But that's not his first encounter. He literally slugged Darius Kasparaitis of the Pittsburgh Penguins in 2000.
Came back real hard on Kamensky. Oh, look at here. Look at here. This looks like Mark Messier. And Kasparaitis and Messier.
Boy, what an interesting sequence. And I don't know when the last time Mark Messier dropped the gloves was. And early in Messier's career, he dropped his gloves all the time.
Oh, you gotta...
The place erupted. Everyone was pissed. Fans, players, and even the guys in the press box were shaking their heads. It was a low blow, a dirty play that everyone could see. Messier? He got his name muddied that night. A stain on his record that's harder to clean up than a Zamboni spill. And to think a few years later, this same guy shows up in Vancouver, trying to be the big cheese. From laying a cheap shot to stealing the captain's C, it's like a two-handed shove to the face. This was a guy brought in to be the Messiah, the franchise player, the final piece to the Stanley Cup puzzle. It turned out sour faster than a Zamboni on black ice. It was like trading in a real reliable old pickup on a shiny new sports car and finding out it's a lemon. Now we all love a good underdog story, but this was the exact opposite. The Canucks were supposed to be the big dogs, with Messier as their alpha. So what went wrong? Pat Quinn's pursuit of Wayne Gretzky is the stuff of hockey legend. A midnight call, an ultimatum. It is a story still getting people to talk about the hockey game. Losing out on the great one was a tough pill to swallow for Canucks fans, no doubt. But bringing in Mark Messier as a consolation prize? Well, that's a hockey trade that to this day is still being debated. It was a massive gamble. Messier was a proven winner, a captain who'd lifted 2 franchises to Stanley Cup glory. But could he do it again this time on the West Coast? And was he the right fit for a Canucks team already searching for a spark? So the Canucks, in their infinite wisdom, brought in the guy who'd been their kryptonite for years. A ballsy move if ever there was one. The equivalent of inviting the neighborhood bully over for dinner, hoping he'd suddenly become your best buddy. You know, it's easy to forget that Mark Messier signing with the Canucks was a total blast for Vancouver fans. At his first presser on July 28, 1997, Messier was all smiles in his brand new Canucks jersey, the first one with the killer whale logo. Messier was seen as the missing piece for a Canucks team that was so close to winning the Cup just 3 years earlier. He got a sweet 5-year deal worth $6 million a season, with a $2 million buyout option after the third year, which the Canucks took. He became the captain and got the number 11 jersey, but things went south due to some serious beef between Messier and former captain Trevor Linden.
It's my pleasure at this time to welcome to you Mark Messier.
When a fish like Mark Messier lands in a pond like Vancouver, the ripples are felt far and strong. He is a player that instantly makes this team better.
He's probably the best two-way center.
A fresh start, or so it seemed. Torn between forgiveness and lingering resentment, Canucks fans were ready to give Messier a chance. A big contract, a leadership role. The stage was set for a heroic comeback story. But we all know how hockey works. Funny old game. Expectations can weigh, well, a ton. So let's get to what happened next. Did Messier live up to all that hype? Well, this is a whole new level of bad optics, eh? Messier demanding the number 11. That's like a rookie goalie asking for Gretzky's old pads. That's like dishonoring Wayne Mackey's memory. Wasn't that really where everything started to become just a little bit unhinged? The team should have stood their ground. The McCaw brothers are just a pair of shadows looming over the Canucks. They bought into the team as if it was some sort of hostile takeover. And that palm-down handshake deal, giving Messier jacket number 11 without batting an eye, classic power play. We've talked about Messier's fiery temper, the cheap shot on Linden, and his controversial move to Vancouver. There's another side to this story, however, a darker side that may help explain some of that on-ice aggression. So much more happened behind the scenes during the glory days of the Edmonton Oilers. Of course, the rumor mill was in overdrive, as much as whispers of substance abuse were as loud as a jam-packed arena. We're talking about a time when the NHL still used to be a different world, and the boys are allowed to let it loose like one can hardly imagine today. Oilers' 80s dynasty was a skilled, fast, and otherwise mess of a something. The team scored goals an awful lot as if it was going out of style. Behind the scenes, however, something was getting pretty messy. There were always rumors milling around about a real serious problem with cocaine for some of the big-name Oilers. It's like a penalty kill. Once you're in deep, it's tough to get out. Sports Illustrated even weighed in on the issue, claiming at least 5 players were mired in addiction. Grant Four, that brick wall in net, was one of the guys caught in the crossfire. His troubles with cocaine were well known, and the stories about Glenn Sather bailing him out with utility bills are the kind of stuff that makes you shake your head. But Four wasn't alone. There were rumors swirling around about a bunch of Oilers living on the wild side. Drinking and driving, getting into trouble with the law. It was like a bad penalty kill. And let's not forget the stories about Messier himself. That guy had been a superstar, but legends too were just human, and Messier was no different. Jasper Avenue, that was the place to be back then. A hotbed of nightlife and, let's be honest, trouble. Stories about drinking and driving were as common as a power play. And when you're Mark Messier, of course your teammates are going to cover up for you. He never made headlines, but the rumors stuck. Now, of course, these were only rumors at that time. Nobody had any proof, and in the hockey circles, it is easy to spread gossip. But if you take a step back to look at the bigger picture with Messier, it really makes you wonder if something more was going on than just a hot head. Was the cocaine fueling that fire? Did it feed into that aggressive playing style of his? But Messier was in a different class. He was just like a tank, steamrollering everyone in his path. It's almost as if the harder he partied, the harder he played. Some sort of perverted motivation, if you will. Then there is Vancouver. $6 million bucks? That is more money than most of us will ever see in our lifetime. To Messier, it was like money into the black hole. No goals, no assists, just a ton of disappointment. It's almost as if you're watching a power play with only 3 guys. You can fall flat on your face one season, then bounce back like a rubber puck the next. Messier did just that. New York, old stomping grounds, and suddenly he's back to being a scoring machine. 67 points? That's a statement. It was like he never missed a beat. But those glory days finally came to an end. In or about 2009, Theo Fleury dropped some juicy details about Mark Messier in his autobiography. The past finally started catching up to him. Fleury went into detail about the tumultuous period during his time with the New York Rangers, the late 80s to early 90s. Playing with one particular superstar, details emerged of a team culture that was anything but squeaky clean. While Fleury had the courage to speak out about his own experiences, he was smart enough not to point fingers. The hockey world, however, isn't necessarily known for its discretion. It really didn't take much to connect the dots, with most making the assumption that the star teammate he alluded to was none other than Mark Messier. It was almost as if someone had left the net wide open. The target was pretty clear. Dear World Fund 1, fast forward to 2004, and Messier decided to hang up his skates. The captain-turned-legend was supposed to have a gold-plated retirement. However, the rumors of a different kind of lifestyle began to swirl, red-flagged by reports of way too much partying, substance abuse, and a spending binge burning through his millions like wildfire. But his story didn't end there. He was running low on money. So guess what he decides to do? Set up a business? Use his image? No. In 2012, years after his disappointing stint with the Canucks ended in 2000, Messier actually sued the team. He claimed there was some kind of loophole in his old bloated $6 million a year contract that entitled him to even more money. The guy couldn't buy a goal during his time here, and the Canucks missed the playoffs every single year he wore the jersey. But now, because the team's doing well and worth more money, he wants a cut. It's like a player claiming a share of the gate receipts because he once scored a power play goal. Vancouver fans were furious. It was like a cheap shot to the face of the entire city. And it's something that NHL fans can't seem to forget about Messier, even to this day. Leaves a bad taste in everyone's mouth, that name. Much of Mark Messier's checkered past does earn him some well-deserved hate, but not to forget that he was up there with a lot of the best in the NHL. He's just 15, green as grass, but dreaming of hockey glory. His old man, Doug, is coaching the Spruce Grove Mets in the AJHL. And even though the kid's way too young, Doug gives him a shot. That youngster makes the team when no one thought he would, and the next year he bangs home 66 goals in the 1976-77 season. Not too shabby for a first-year man. The next season, 1977-78, they named him captain of the St. Albert Saints. A 15-year-old captain? Well, that little lad was something else. Well, young Messier wasn't satisfied just to dominate junior hockey. In the spring of 1978, he suited up for the playoffs with the Portland Winterhawks. A real baptism by fire, that WHL. But hey, this kid was fearless. He proved he belonged, even if it was just for a short stint. But by fall of 1978, the AJHL was starting to feel a bit like Pee-wee hockey. He wants a bigger pond to skate in. The Olympic team for the 1980 Games? Sounds good, but those tryouts didn't pan out. Out of the blue, his old man Doug pulls a rabbit out of his hat. A tryout with the Indianapolis Racers of the World Hockey Association. A kid fresh out of junior hockey getting a shot at the big time. Messier plays a few games for the Racers in November 1978 and gets a taste of pro hockey, but the team is in trouble. On December 15, 1978, the Indianapolis Racers folded up shop, leaving Messier high and dry. But this kid was made of tougher stuff than most. Messier heads back to the St. Albert Saints to finish up his junior hockey days. Kid's got talent, but he's itching for something bigger. He signs a deal with the Cincinnati Stingers in the WHA. Not exactly the NHL, but it's a start. After a few months of grinding it out, he finally lights the lamp for his first pro goal. It's a small victory, but a big deal for a young guy chasing his dream. Fast forward to 1979, the WHA's kaput. The Edmonton Oilers, Messier's hometown team, snags him in the draft. Kid's pumped, but he's got dollar signs in his eyes. They throw him a lowball offer. Messier's not happy, but he swallows his pride and signs it. His rookie season in the NHL. Well, he had some good moments and some not-so-good ones. The kid had heart, though. He'd bounce back stronger every time. He spent a significant time in the penalty box and was sent down to the Houston Apollos of the Central Hockey League for a 4-game stint in October 1979. The kid had heart, though. He worked at his game and became a force in the league, netting 50 goals by the 1981-82 season. He made a killer pairing with Glenn Anderson, and the two made up an opposing force no one was ready to mess with. Sure, the Oilers are starting to roll, having Messier right in the middle of things. The Oilers win the Cup, 84, and Messier's the MVP. Not a bad year for the kid. And then, sure, even legends get themselves in trouble now and then. It's 84, and he's got the gloves off for Jamie McCoon, and things get dirty. Suspended for 10 games? Ugh. Not to mention that in 85, there was the whole Porsche crash thing. Not his finest moment.
I'm looking more than forward to the new challenge ahead of me here in New York. I'm every bit as confident the second career is going to be as good as the first one.
And then he went on to become a king in New York. Messier was with them for a while. In 94, he was instrumental in winning them the Cup, partly due to that crazy guarantee of his. But nothing lasts forever, and by 97, he was out of there. Next stop, Vancouver. Big mistake. The fans hate him, the team stinks, and he gets kicked to the curb in 2000. Ouch again! After the Vancouver adventure, which was about as enjoyable as getting a tooth pulled, this guy was ready to get back to the Big Apple. In 2000, the Rangers opened their arms and their wallets and brought him back. They welcomed him home again, but with hockey sticks instead of a fatted calf. To make things even spicier, they handed him back the captain's C. Can you imagine the drama? It was like a soap opera on ice. The fans were pumped, the team was hoping for a miracle, and Messier was ready to prove everyone right. They tried hard, but the wins just weren't coming. Injuries started to creep in, and the old magic was fading. It was like watching a star player slowly lose their shine. But there's a twist of fate. The Rangers traded his rights to the Sharks. It was like trading away your favorite jersey. Then in 2003, November, Messier etched his name in history when he passed Gordie Howe to be second in NHL history for point scoring. Messier had his bittersweet farewell during his final game at Madison Square Garden. On March 31, 2004, he would skate one final lap for the sellout crowd that would accord him a thunderous standing ovation and fitting tribute to the hockey great. Most figured his career had ended at 43, but no one was truly sure until the NHL lockout hit in 2004-2005. On September 12, 2005, Messier officially retired. To that point, he had played a record 192 games, a showcase to his durability and willingness to push it to another level. A true Iron Man of the game. But he played the game for over 2 decades, racking up numbers that'll make your head spin. We're talking, of course, about his 1,987 points, which is third all time, behind only Gretzky and Jagr. That's like getting a hat trick every other game. And then, of course, there's his Iron Man status. 1,756 games played. That's more than most guys play in their whole lives. But numbers alone do not a legend make. He was the leader of 2 Stanley Cup champions, the Edmonton Oilers and the New York Rangers. Then, of course, there was the night he gave the Rangers a guarantee followed by a hat trick. That's how legends are made. Off the ice, he was part of a ton of charities and good doings. Really, though, he was a stand-up guy. They even named a road after him in St. Albert. On the ice, Mark Messier was a force of nature, a leader of men, and a guy who really didn't shy away from court and a bit of controversy. Oh, his time in Vancouver was rough, no doubt about it. Fans there still might have a bone to pick with him, but let's face it, the guy was hockey folklore. He led 2 other teams than the aforementioned glory by winning the Stanley Cup, a feat that nobody has matched as of yet. His numbers speak for themselves. After hanging up his skates, the Moose, aka Mark Messier, didn't just ride into the hockey sunset. Nope, he turned in his jersey for a suit and tie and has become one of the sharpest hockey minds in the broadcast booth. Since 2021, he's been spitting out hockey wisdom across ESPN, breaking down plays like he's still on the ice.
This is the most important part of the day. It's great to be with you guys.
Exactly.
Forget about all the other stuff.
Yeah.
I'm with you guys.
Let's go. So one of the fun things we like to do here on the show is because we are rights holders here at ESPN, we can pick any highlight we want in history.
Okay.
In honor of you sitting next to us here,
Okay.
I figured, you know what? NHL highlight next.
Were you able to find one?
Several.
Okay,
You
good.
won the cup
Okay.
1 or 2 times. Play us.
Before that, he was sharing his 2 cents on Versus, NBC, and even up north with Rogers. This guy has more hockey experience than a Zamboni driver has ice shavings. It's like having a walking, talking hockey encyclopedia in your living room. That's it for this one. If you're a fan of some brutal ice hockey in the NHL, make sure to check out our videos. Till then, play safe.